Welcome everybody to Already Christianity. I'm glad you're joining us today. This is a Apologetics podcast. R stands for real, raw, and redemptive. So we just try to defend the Christian worldview. Not that God needs us to defend him. Just look at realistic. I mean, just modern current events, politics, anything, theological issues. We just kind of talk and work through any issue, local or public or political or whatever, through a biblical worldview, and then actually hopefully help people defend why they claim to be Christians. I mean, we claim to be Christians. That means we're Christ followers. That means he gets to decide how we live our life and what we think and how we look at the world and how we assess information. And so I'm just going to jump in. And people are fascinated by the topic tonight because information that needs to be processed is whether there's UFOs out there. And if there are, because I have my opinions, okay? If they are, where do they fit into God's plan? I mean, you and I have talked a little bit about it. We really don't talk about UFOs because I could give a shit, to be honest with you. I mean, I just don't care. I mean, if they're out there, great. I'm open to it. There's stuff that fascinates me. I mean, I've seen the Egyptian, what is it, when they write on the walls? Hieroglyphics. and I've seen that when you look at over the pyramids and how they're so, you could only see it from the sky. And I mean, I'm interested in all that, Stonehenge and all the other crap out there. Mm-hmm. I'm interested by all of it. But to me, George,
it is fascinating.
It's fascinating.
Yeah.
And then, there's some videos out there that are pretty interesting, moving around all crazy. You got some people think that those are demonic activity and that those unidentified UFOs or some type of demons. I don't know, man. All I know is God created everything, include the universe, all 300 billion galaxies within the universe, every star, every planet in every galaxy. And so if there's another life form out there, God created it. This is for me, and then you can correct me theologically. God created it. If there is another life form out there, did Jesus present the gospel message to them? I don't know. And I mean, who knows? These are things that have gone through my mind. I know people like Joe Rogan are fascinated by UFOs. It seems like everybody is. Star Wars jacked everybody up, it seems. But I mean, I don't harp on it, but it is interesting. It's worth conversation. But since other people have a lot of opinions on it, I'm curious theologically, what is your thoughts on where it fits into the gospel message, into Christianity? Because there's some people out there that say, well, if there's UFOs, that screws up Christianity. And I don't know. I've never heard the theory why, but.
Yeah, I put it in the class of hypotheticals, the Lahud hypotheticals that you taught me years ago. If my wife had testicles, she'd be my, or if my aunt had testicles, she'd be my uncle. Yeah. And it's probably in the same category of
balls.
All right, we can go with balls. Nuts. But it's probably in the same. I don't know that I'm fascinated by it. I like a good Predator movie as much as anybody else. and I love Alien. I mean, I don't think I've ever missed an Alien movie. I'm fascinated by it, and I enjoy Aliens, all of them. I've lost track now, but I enjoy them. Even the ones that are pretty bad, I enjoy them because
I remember you said that years ago, and I totally forgot you said that.
Yeah, I'm fascinated by it. Aliens. I'm an avid good movie watcher. I'm fascinated by it, and like I said, I love Predator. I could watch that over and over and over and over again. So yeah, I'm an avid watcher, and I'm a captive audience. But that's not reality. It just isn't reality. I just want to tell people from a scientific perspective, there's literally zero evidence at all. Zero.
You say zero, George. You say zero?
If we're talking in terms,
zero, not even like a point.
If we're talking in terms of empirical evidence, there's literally zero
then
credible
what's all this
evidence.
crap people talk about this governmental files and things that have been released and pilots that have seen crazy
I would
things.
recommend that they would go to. There's been plenty of them. There's congressional testimony from alleged whistleblowers and contractees of the government, and there's former United States Air Force officers, and who also had intelligence clearing of sorts, and it's been a rather big embarrassment. I mean, and you and I have been texting about this for years, and you've forwarded me stuff that people are asking on the issue of UFOs, and what does that have to do with? Because people will send you stuff, and you forward it to me and say, "What are your thoughts on this?" And from the very beginning, I've been pretty consistent. While the Bible's indifferent about it, the Bible doesn't say anything about that at all. It just simply proposes right from the get-go that Yahweh is the creator of heaven and earth, that God created the sum total of the physical universe. So whatever's been created, it was at his hand.
So, and I'll ask him when I see him, hopefully in many, many years. But so why? Because we know that there's no multi-universe evidence.
Well, there's no evidence of it, and that comes from.
But who needs another universe when you have what? I mean, what are we at now? 300 billion galaxies plus?
Yeah,
more.
Sure.
I mean, who knows?
And we haven't.
It's in the hundreds of billions of galaxies. Mm-hmm. And just to put it in perspective, and I'm not condescending when I say this because I didn't know this till years ago, that we're in the Milky Way. That's our galaxy, and our galaxy is so damn big.
It is.
We haven't even explored our own galaxy.
Sure.
Right. We have what is it? 5 million. A star that's 5 million miles wide or whatever, and you can't even see it in our galaxy. I mean, our galaxy is huge. And to think that there's 300 billion more Milky Ways, maybe bigger, maybe smaller, whatever. I don't know how big galaxies are. But the idea, and I guess God can do whatever he wants in that sense, but why create all these galaxies? And then he chose one. If we look at the universe as all the sand, all the beaches in the world, he chose one speck of sand, blue sand, just because it's Earth, to create an environment cosmologically to have life. The Earth is super small. I mean, literally a speck of sand. And then to bring in the gospel message for all of the universe everywhere. I mean, sure, he can do it. I mean, like I said, I don't harp on it, and it doesn't keep me up at night. But I mean, that's a legit question, don't you think?
Well, our galaxy is substantial enough; it's significant enough, and to your point, because it's significant enough, that's just our galaxy.
Yeah.
Our sun is a pretty big star, but in the scope of
stars,
extrapolated reality, it would be a tiny star. There are other stars that are bigger than the sun, but our sun, in its own right, is a significant star. I mean, it's it can fit about 109 Earths in it. And so that's pretty large. And so I can understand then that people would extrapolate if there's this many planets, there's that many stars in our galaxy. And so you can imagine if there's hundreds of billions of galaxies, how many more planets? It's in the trillions of planets.
Right.
And so the chances that Earth is the only planet that actually has complex biological life, it seems irrational to conclude that.
Right.
Okay, fine, I get that, but that's not an argument.
No, I get that.
There's been an industry built around certainty, and I think that's how I would describe it. The claim is zero certainty, or like absolute certainty and zero evidence. That's kind of where the industry is right now. There's you cannot convince.
So what
this industry of grift, in my view. Again, this is a guy who's fascinated by it, and I love a good alien movie. But then there's the notion that this is absolutely true.
What are the explanations for those objects that are that
Well, it's come under scrutiny.
Okay.
And every time it's constantly over-promising and under-delivering. Again, we've had congressional testimony. The ones that I went through in detail were a United States Air Force officer and a former intelligence official by the name of David Grusch, and he went before the House Oversight Committee. And his claim was that the government, since the 1930s, is in possession of physical aircraft from alien, as well as physical biological material from aliens, and that it's basically presiding over a cover-up. And so think about that. That's 90 years. And so I guess I basically have two criticisms of that. And ultimately, and long before the congressional hearings, I've had two criticisms. There's a practical criticism, and there's one based on basic physics. And what ended up happening at the hearings is that my assumptions were proven correct, because when he was pushed against a corner, his argument was, I heard it from a guy who heard it from a guy. He really didn't have any evidence to offer. There were no credible sources that were offered. There were no credible locations that were offered.
File?
And so the files are just one amalgamation after another. It's contrived, and the conclusion that I have come to for decades is that maybe 1% of the stuff is actual unexplained phenomena. And it's real and unexplained. But the vast majority are things that can be explained through physical explanations.
Really?
And so in the age of the internet, you can take 1 or 2% or 3% and you can make it look like the whole very easily. You know that.
Sure.
It's not hard to manipulate reality. And so the question then becomes, what's behind this? What's the push?
So
What's the fascination?
Let's assume, let's play a thought game then. Let's assume that there's aliens, UFOs, right? Whatever. Other life forms, complex life form. Where would that fit into the Christian message, the gospel message, God's plan? I mean, is it irrelevant? I mean,
Well, you have to
more
take
like I do,
when you read the scripture doesn't it doesn't deny the existence of other life forms, but the way it presents these life forms and God creating them, that is in Genesis 1, and then the narrative that follows, and when God talks about the universe, and when he talks about earth, and when he talks about the incarnation of God in the person of Jesus Christ and the mission of Christ, which is a redemptive ministry, a redemptive mission, that he is God with us for the purposes of saving as many persons as possible so that we might have an eternal and intimate relationship with him. The context is a closed context. It's not, it doesn't leave open the possibility that this kind of stuff is going on in other worlds. You really have to go there. You have to kind of extrapolate your way there, which you're welcome to do. I'm just saying if you're reading contextually, there's no practical, rational, or theologically reasonable impetus for doing that. So that's my answer. The Bible, it's a closed system. It makes it clear that God is the creator of heaven and earth, and is the creator of the entire universe. No argument there. But when it talks about life, or God relating to life, or the notion of an imago Dei, or the image bearer, where we are the physical representatives, he's talking about human beings. It's not an open-ended statement. And so you can go there. I don't know why you would go there. And so for me, I'm more fascinated about why are people so fascinated by an unrevealed possibility while rejecting what has been revealed. And so the people, because that's what's happening. I mean, you've had a rejection of the scriptures. You've had a rejection of God's narrative, God's big story of reaching out to a broken and fallen mankind. God has revealed himself. So we have people rejecting that revealed reality, but we have them chasing really a pipe dream in terms of evidence. Why? I'm more fascinated by that question. What's the fascination? Why would you reject the living God and all of the evidence behind his revelation, God's special revelation in the scriptures, which is attested extra biblically? So you have historical evidence, because that's why we call it historical Christianity, historical traditional Christianity, and then you have the revealed theological truths and Christological truths in the scripture together into a very convincing body of evidence that the God who created heaven and earth has revealed himself, motivated in genuine, true, self-sacrificial love for me, so he can be in a relationship with me. That's everything. And people are rejecting that left and right.
I know we try to limit God
for the unknown,
and make him give him human traits. But, hold on. Someone just sent me something.
I suspect
that
happens a lot.
No, we'll talk about it after. I guess someone said like, "Hi, why'd you guys?" I thought you guys were starting at 8:30. I guess the advertisement was for 8:30, not 8. He goes, "My bad. That's okay. No big deal." So people are gonna show up late, and you can go rewind. Sorry about that, guys. Just, So then, God doing that. Why? I mean, what could be the logic? And I'm not going to try to figure out why God does what he does, but to create, I mean, this huge. It seems like this universe that's never ending. I mean, because they keep finding new galaxies pretty regularly, right? I mean, do we have an actual number? I guess I've always said 300 billion.
Yeah. No, we have Hubble telescope technology with spectral imaging on the end.
Is there a number?
And so no, it's look. We're talking about a universe that had a birth date, if you will, around 13.8 billion years ago, with what we call the cosmological Big Bang, And so since the 1930s, specifically, I think 1931, when Albert Einstein got together with Edwin Hubble at Mount Wilson Laboratory and saw spindle nebula, which were distant galaxies and sort of receding very quickly. And the universe is expanding to the tune of around 42.6 miles per second, I think. And so it's a vast universe. The galaxies are way too numerous to count, and you extrapolate a certain number of.
Is someone keeping track of them?
Stars in those galaxies and in planets that are orbiting those stars and so forth, and it's just mind blowing. Okay, so the hundreds of billions,
100 billion.
Yeah, we're not tabulating them. We don't see them.
Nobody does. Nobody tabulates.
Well,
them?
we can't. We have, even though we can see into the far reaches of space, we can't see all of it. And this is, we just can. It's such a dramatic expanse. And so it's interesting to me that the argument is, well, it's so expansive, it's all but certain that there's advanced life out there. And I would just caution people to step back and recognize that the research shows increasingly that to the extent you have complex biological life or complex life in the universe as a function of cosmic time, in other words, since the universe began, we are likely it. Even the research bears out that because of the conditions that are necessary to sustain advanced life in the universe, and we are the only known example of such advanced life, then we are it. Now, that's not to say that it's not possible. Science never makes that argument philosophically. It's science. It's possible you could have more and so forth. But as of now, given what's required to sustain human life, I mean, if you just look at, we don't just float around. We're on a planet. So this planet sustains life for a reason. So other planets, it's reasonable to assume other planets would have to have a profile very similar to Earth. That's reasonable to assume that. It would also be reasonable to assume that other complex biological life forms would probably be carbon-based. Now, people are listening to this who are all in on the UFO stuff. I mean, their hair standing up on the back of their necks. Well, you have a tiny little view of the world. You're limiting. Who's to say it's carbon-based? Well, let me tell you what's to say it's carbon-based, because that's the only evidence that we have.
Wait, hold on. But you're assuming people know what you mean when you say carbon-based.
Well, we are carbon-based. We are a carbon-based, mammals are carbon-based life forms. Everything you see in nature is carbon-based.
Explain what that means.
Carbon compounds. So our fundamental elemental form is carbon. Everything's carbon-based. And so you would have to logically assume that if there is complex biological life out there, or complex life of any kind, it would be reasonable to assume a similar chemistry. And so that's reasonable. So now you assume a similar planet with perhaps a similar mass. Earth has a very specific mass. I've done Old Testament survey. We went through Genesis 1 and the wonder of Genesis 1 that God created. Earth has a specific mass with a specific surface gravity. And because of that, it can retain the atmosphere that it has. Change it in the slightest bit, and the atmosphere either evaporates or it becomes impossible to see light through, in which case everything dies on the surface of the Earth, because you kind of need light. So the precision of planet Earth and the precision of the life forms that are fit for Earth, just in other words, it severely limits the conditions that are possible to sustain life. And yet, if we assume that there are other life forms out there, you would assume those same type of stringencies, those same type of limitations, which is why we're not seeing, an abundance of life forms out there. And so I would say, based on the science, that because all of these conditions make it highly unlikely, it makes sense that there's no evidence for any other life form. In fact, we are an utter miracle from a physical science perspective.
But if there were, so that's what I asked. My initial question was, if there were other life forms, what would that do to the gospel message?
Well, it's not going to be what these people are claiming it's going to be, because it violates the laws of physical science. Well, the notion that you have these life forms that are traveling interdimensional distances, and they're literally interstellar distances. I mean, this is like Star Trek, for instance. That's total science fiction. The idea that they're traveling the speed of light. We don't have the capability to travel the speed of light. We don't even have the capability to travel 1/10 of the speed of light. Speed of light's about 186,000 miles per second. A tenth of that would be 18,600 miles per second. We don't have any technology that can go anywhere near that. And so you see Star Trek, and they're going at warp speed, and they're going at light speed. And so they're going literally to the far reaches of other universes in a couple of hours. That's true science fiction. There's just nothing within a remote possibility that can be done. So that's science fiction. In order to do that, you would literally have to violate physical laws, and there's no evidence that can be done at all. There's just no evidence of that. And so I would say the stuff that they're saying has appeared here on Earth from alien life forms that have crashed, that ain't it. Those objects wouldn't be able to defy the physical laws in order to come to Earth and then simply crash. You don't defy those kinds of limitations and then just sort of crash on a planet. That seems to me highly irrational to conclude that. And so we just have to step back from what we know and then go to the unknown versus what's happening, which is we start with totally unknown and then fill in a bunch of imaginary gaps.
If there were another life form, would we have to say that most likely there would have to be a gospel message presented to them as well? Did Christ in the second person of the Godhead would have maybe incarnated for them, or I'm just trying to think.
Well, this isn't a new concept. I don't know if you've read C.S. Lewis's Space Trilogy or if you've seen any videos about it, but he broaches that topic. I think there are serious scriptural issues with it because, what do you have? Multiple saviors? You have, copy and pasted versions of Jesus who are reaching out. He's got, and I think the planet Venus is an unfallen world, so he's got that scenario as well. That's interesting. It's fantastical, but yeah, you're right. Then what do you end up with? Jesus is sort of parking at these various planets and sort of going through the gospel, the gospel program one at a time. Is that what's going on, or is it that you have multiple Jesuses, and then you'd have all kinds of problems with that because he's the begotten Son of God. We've got exclusionary language all over the place in Scripture, and it raises interesting theological questions that I think then. You end up with a very different. It seems to me a very different proposition.
Would it be? It wouldn't be a heresy, but would it be inappropriate for a Christian to believe in UFOs?
Well, if to the extent that our faith is not a blind faith and it's grounded in rational truths, I think it would be inappropriate if you wanted to be rational. If inappropriate means that it's immoral in some way or that it's unethical in some way, no, it would not be inappropriate in that way. But God gave us a grounded faith, and he provided lots of evidence for it. That isn't to say that there aren't things we don't understand. There's plenty of stuff we don't understand. The great creeds say that God is the maker of heaven and earth, the creator of the visible and the invisible. There's things we don't see. There are interdimensional beings. They're called angels. And so we didn't get there, but I would submit, I am of that camp that would suggest that fraction, that tiny fraction of things or phenomena we don't understand, that they're actually perhaps promulgated by angelic host.
Oh, so
yeah, that they're supernatural beings, and it makes
what
makes
is your
sense
opinion
to me.
on time travel?
Well, time travel it's fascinated me my entire life, but I just think it's a physical incapability because you'd have inconsistencies, obviously. You go back and you change the past. How do you do that without changing the future? And there's all kinds of interesting theories on that. Einstein's mathematics actually suggests that it is possible, truly. And the faster you approach the speed of light, because space-time, distance, time, and velocity are related, right? So when you consider basic equations like distance is equal to velocity times time, you can see there's a relationship between distance and time through velocity. So that the faster you're traveling, the slower the faster you're traveling, the slower time goes. And at some point, the belief is that you can actually go backward in time. And so, but here's the problem with that. When you travel, we can't travel at the speed of light. You'd have to travel faster than the speed of light to actually go backward in time. We can't even travel anywhere near close to the speed of light. That's problem one. We just don't have the means to do it. Problem two is that when you do that, the mass of an object, Nico, becomes infinitesimally huge. And so it seems inconceivable to me that you'd be able to survive it. You'd probably explode because your mass would just become significant, which is why the only way we can do that kind of testing is with subatomic particles like electrons who are weightless, And we can do particle acceleration and fire electrons at incredible speeds because their masses are weightless. So even though they increase in mass, it still won't overwhelm the system. So the point is, time travel is fascinating, truly fascinating, especially when you've made lots of mistakes in life and you'd love to go back and correct them. But no, it's not a physical possibility.
So your conclusion is what? You're fascinated by UFOs. You're fascinated by time travel.
My conclusion is that it's an industry of grift.
What do you mean by that, grift?
What I mean is that there's a lot of money in it, and I think they string people along because people are fascinated by it. I also think that it's gained a lot of traction for religious reasons. I think people are fascinated by it, like I'm fascinated by it, but they're fascinated almost with a cultic appeal. There's a religious nature to it. Because, the idea, we have a materialistic world. We've largely abandoned scriptural propositions globally, and it's frustrating. And so what replaces that is a wholly materialistic view of the world. And so we're open. We're open to the idea that the solution is materialistic, that there are physical beings out there who know it all and that can do it all. We're attracted to that.
So we give God properties to these UFOs. Do you think this is more acceptable?
God-like properties, yes, that's right.
Is this more acceptable, you think, accepted by non-Christians or Christians?
Oh, 100%.
Or by non-Christians?
Yeah, non-Christians and Christians alike, because I don't think that Christendom has been as illiterate as it's been. Most Christians have no actual understanding of what the Scripture teaches on key doctrines, and so we're open to all kinds of propositions that I think are destructive and misleading. And if you believe what the Scripture says about demonic hosts, for instance, or demonic fallen angels, they exist to deceive the brethren. And they exist to deceive anyone, whether they're Christians or not. But I'll tell you what, if you're a demonic creature, why would you present, you'd love to present yourself as a material phenomenon, because we've lent ourselves to that. We're open to that. The world is open to a materialistic explanation. And so they're not going to present themselves for what they are, for being interdimensional beings. They're going to present themselves as a material entity because we're open to it. So why would you have to work 10 times harder? Just give people what they want and deceive them with it. And so we're open. We're open to this whole materialistic explanation for the universe's beginnings, to the extent where the creator of heaven and earth has now been replaced by Prometheus, by some distant age. There's a movie about that, by the way, which I found fascinating. I don't know if you saw it, Dom, but you should see Prometheus. And the basic notion is that at the beginning of the creation of heaven and earth is an alien. And it's a physical alien who just happens to be around for a long time and knows a lot of shit and is really smart and has lots of capabilities. And
where did he come from?
And so we've basically created our own creator. You see how that works? Yeah, so we have a long history as human beings. It makes us, it kind of buttons things up for us. It makes it more containable. We're less afraid of the things that we know. So we try to create, it's delusional. And this is my point. I think this feeds into human nature. We like to have control of our own origin story. Even our own origin story, we want to control it.
So if there was, I don't think you've answered this question yet. If, and a hypothetical,
okay,
I understand. If there were other life forms,
okay,
what would that do to the Christian message or the gospel message?
Well, no, I thought I answered the question. Let's assume you have a bunch of planets with a bunch of other life forms. I think that you'd have to ask yourself. I'm answering the question with some questions, which is, what does that say for the gospel program? What is it? You'd have to really go back to some of the language and the assertions that are in the Scripture, even though the Scripture doesn't create a negative argument for the existence of other life forms. I think it creates kind of a positive argument against it, because everything it states about existence in terms of our universe and earth and life is contained. It doesn't leave the possibility open in the language. The possibility is there.
So you're saying what I think the opponents of Christianity want. it sounds like you're saying that the language nor the logic leave an opening for other life forms. And so if there were other life forms, then what would that do?
Yeah. Okay. Well, I'll make the language more precise in what I'm saying, my own description. So the language is obviously directed towards us. Of course it is. Sure. It's this planet. The creative acts in Genesis 1 are this planet. The focus is on this planet. We now know that there is no, we know that the conditions to sustain life, they're called the habitable zones, like liquid water habitable zone. There are regions around a planet where the conditions to sustain life are so stringent and so significant, significantly stringent, that you have to conclude, other than Earth, where is there another planet like Earth? Where?
Well, I mean,
where is there another?
If there's 100 billion other galaxies, I mean, we haven't explored them all. Who knows?
Well, I realize that, but that's not an argument.
No, I mean,
right?
Would that be a hypothesis?
That's totally hypothetical, okay. And so we can do that. I mean, that's science fiction, but that's in a whole category of discussion than evidence. And so a non-Christian could say.
Let me give you the analogy. I mean, so let's say before the internet, before technology, advancements in travel, a group of people, for however, found ourselves in the middle of the United States with no oceans around. And we say, I wonder if there's any oceans. We have no evidence there's any oceans. Well, we just hadn't found them yet, but they were there. You understand my point? All I'm saying is, if you haven't explored all those billions of galaxies, 1 billion of other galaxies is mind-blowing to me. But just the thought that we're even approaching 100 billion other galaxies or more is I mean, it's inconceivable.
Yeah.
That's why I always tell people, when you have a problem with living in eternity when you leave this earth, we're kind of living in eternity now when you think about the cosmos and the universe and what's been explored and not explored and available to explore, which we probably won't ever do. But I'm just trying to meet people's
I don't think anyone's debating. I don't think anyone's. I wouldn't debate it. I mean, is it possible? Yes. That's a short answer. Is it possible that there could be other Earth-like planets that could sustain life, complex biological life, like human beings? Yes, it's possible.
But so because I'm not.
Now what?
You're the science. You're the science guy. So we have an atmosphere, right? Is that what it's called? Our solar system. Right, and are there any other solar systems like us in the Milky Way?
Yeah, there's plenty of solar systems. I think but the profile matters. There are other planets. There are other planets in our solar system, and those planets are dramatically different in terms of their composition, their atmospheric composition, in terms of the minerals that are present.
Their closeness to the sun, all that matters, right?
Yes, significantly so. And again, I mentioned just one, surface gravity, which is a big one. I mean, the specificity of Earth's mass is a big deal. The specificity of the sun's mass and its luminosity. In other words, its brightness content. You jerk with that, and it's all over but the crying. So the slightest adjustment in those particulars, in terms of the relationship of the sun to the earth to the moon, those things are very particular. Those relationships, those physical relationships are very particular, very precise. And so that precision is necessarily exclusionary. That's the point I'm trying to make. And so if you're going to just assume, it's vast. Well, vastness doesn't have a damn thing to do with it, with all due respect. At least not enough to make that a compelling argument. There's so many more galaxies that we don't know about. There's so many stars we don't know about. So therefore, no, that's a huge leap, because even in the ones we know, we're it. So, and why are we it? That's the question. Why are we it? And it's the precision, this fine-tuning argument, which I realize a lot of atheists don't understand the fine-tuning argument, so they dismiss it out of whole cloth. But the reality is that there are dozens of physical constants, and across all the natural sciences, from biochemical constants to cosmological constants to physical constants to chemical constants, that make life on Earth and the complexity of life on Earth possible, and that make Earth's existence possible. Our existence is unique. The size of our moon is entirely unique. We have a bizarrely and inexplicably large moon. compared to any other. Why? You mess with the size of the moon, you can kiss your next vacation goodbye. I mean, it's just that precise. Everything matters where it's located and what its composition is. And so I think you can't just say it's vast. You have to extrapolate the uniqueness of those constants. And so that's why I say, yeah, it's possible, but it's highly unlikely. And so which conversation do you want to have? Do you want to have do you want to have a hypothetical discussion? We
can.
All
the Captain Kirk and Spock fans out there are pissed at you. I mean, so the bottom line is this: there's no evidence of UFOs.
None.
But if there were,
but go to the congressional hearings. You listen to them.
But I'm saying, but if there were,
yeah,
it would be challenging to the gospel message. Is that what you're saying? I mean, I want to make sure, because that's the claim that if there's UFOs, it screws with your Christianity and your faith and your Savior.
If we were to find other complex forms of life similar to human beings in other planets, it would raise some questions. I don't think it would be a challenge to the gospel.
Okay.
Because we have evidence that the gospel is true.
Right.
I think it would just it would naturally raise some questions about what God's doing elsewhere. And what does that, because God's character is God's character. So is God the creator only of our universe but there's another God? So there's another version of Nico in some other multiverse, so there must be another version of Yahweh. See, then it quickly spirals out of control. And so it now is in the realm of total hypothetical and inexplicable. And so I'm saying we can do that. We can play those thought games, but why? We have enough problems with reality.
Yeah. Well, are we missing anything? Any questions? Because
I think we should, at some point we should talk about, because the fascination is only growing. The fascination is only growing. And it's in the church. And so the idea that there is a extraterrestrial explanation for things. And the only extraterrestrial we know is Jesus. And so looking for another extraterrestrial, but I'm concerned that it's an extraterrestrial. It's an ET we want to control.
Well, define extraterrestrial first. And wouldn't demons be considered extraterrestrial?
Interdimensional. So you could argue, yes, that would be an extraterrestrial interdimensional being.
Well, explain the difference between those two.
Not a terrestrial being, so yes, an angelic, if you expand the definition there, yeah. I mean, anything outside of this earth, an alien outside of this earth, wasn't born here, isn't from here. But not a physical being. That's why I say interdimensional. So an extraterrestrial interdimensional being. And so spirits, angels, both ministerial angels and fallen angels. And so I think those things are very real. And the Bible has made quite a bit of provision for those things. Yeah. And they exist to either support God's purposes or to thwart them, or to try to thwart them and oppose them. And so the question is, the ones that try to thwart them are here to deceive. So how do they deceive? And the Bible's loaded with ways in which the devil seeks to deceive people. And so when I think of unidentified anomalous phenomena, the ones that truly can't be explained, I think that those are portals to deception.
Interesting. Well, yeah. It's a fascinating topic. I mean, people are extremely interested in it. I don't think the church even wants to touch it with a 10-foot pole.
Well, there's some science there, because, there's objects that have been discovered. I get all kinds of texts about this too. What about this image? What about this photo? This idea of breaking physical laws. And I'm like, you can't just violate physical laws. I mean, sure you can. Well, how? I mean, how do you?
Angels and demons do, right?
Well, right, but I mean, I'm talking about when they see an object,
right? And
most of those can be explained, and they have been explained.
Wow.
And there's plenty of documentation to provide explanations for those things. And so, former President of the United States Obama was, I don't know if you saw the YouTube interview when they asked him. No. Somebody asked him, Dom, I don't remember. He was in an interview a couple years ago, maybe a year or 2 years ago, and they asked him a question about whether aliens are real, and he says very flippantly, I don't know if he says later he was being sarcastic. He goes, yes, they're real. I don't know of any. I've never seen them. And he goes, and it's not at Area 51. So if there's some facility out there that's keeping them, they've managed to keep them from the President of the United States. That's what he said. Man, it was like people either hated him or loved him for saying that.
Right.
And so he came back and he said, hey, look, I'm not suggesting that these things don't exist, but I just want you to know there's no evidence. There's just literally no evidence of this stuff. And then Trump's out there, he's going to release the files, and it was a big nothing burger. And you have congressional hearings, and this guy's forced to say, yeah, I heard it from a guy who heard it from a guy. But this notion is that the government's keeping something back. There's a lot of controversy. Now, the government's earned it because they're not exactly a trusting party. But now it's gone completely apeshit. The idea that there's a giant 90-year-old government conspiracy where they're holding on to alien artifacts and even biological material from aliens, and that the aliens consisting of that biological material broke the physical laws of the universe, traveling faster than the speed of light to come here. And I always ask, and to crash. And there's nothing, whenever there's investigations, who'd you talk to, what are the sources? I mean, anything. Nothing. There's just one giant ball of nothing. Why? Well, because there's nothing there. But it is a huge money-making industry. I mean, it is unbelievable. We're talking billions of bucks. Yeah. So it's not going anywhere anytime soon.
Well, I mean, it's nothing that I lose any sleep over. I mean, but I'm not a Star Wars guy. Sorry, I know that makes you upset, George. But I'm not into the whole space, the alien, Star Wars shit. I'm just not. I'm not into all that stuff. So.
Nico,
So that's me personally. I know a lot of people.
You started by saying, and frankly, I don't give a shit. I don't either. I mean, because I don't think it's legit. I mean, obviously, I don't think there's any evidence around it. I'm fascinated by the whole thing, but there's no. If you're gonna have a serious discussion, again, from an evidence perspective, there's just nothing there. But what are people saying, Dom? I mean, what questions or pushback or? Okay.
Carolina Garcia said, George, that's your opinion and belief.
No, it's actually not my opinion. There's no evidence. Let's just be very clear about that. My opinion is based on evidence. There's no evidence. We've got an email. I'm sure there's ways to reach us. Send me your best evidence for extraterrestrial life. Seriously, I'm not talking about what we talked about here, the caveat of interdimensional beings or angelic host. But where's the evidence? Where? And we've had congressional oversight hearing after congressional oversight hearing. We have our best whistleblowers, our best testifiers. Nothing. So at what point do you start saying, okay, there's no evidence of this. I want to go to why we're chasing after it.
What about some of these pilots and astronauts or whomever that say they saw objects do things that modern technology and planes and spacecraft can't do?
And the defense attorney would say, maybe we should get them under testimony and where are they?
And none of that's happening.
Right, exactly. So
it's more, so you think these people are just lying?
Well, yeah, I mean, I'm not saying, and some people, like I said, excluding that 1 or 2% that are legit.
Right.
I think people see what they think they see. And then when they're put under pressure to actually put up, they don't. And that's not just in this, it's in other areas of life. I mean, you're in the business of cross-examining people all the time. A lot of people make a lot of claims, and then they get under oath and in a court of law, and all of a sudden it seems a very different picture. We're dealing with that here. But again, I want to get to this issue, and maybe we can have Marquise and the brothers on, because I'd like to challenge this, because there's a lot of people in local congregations who believe this. I want to know why we're chasing after it, because it's a big chase, and people are paying a lot of money to chase after this. I want to understand, why? What's the fascination? And it's in the church.
Man.
Why are we not satisfied with the revealed God? Why are we going after an unrevealed one? I'm curious.
Well, I'm going to say this. Well, look, George, your input matters. I mean, I know this is your wheelhouse, and like I said, I personally don't spend time even thinking at all about it, to be honest with you. People have questions. They're like, look, if they're there, like it's kind of like what you said, then we'd have, it doesn't question, I don't think, the gospel message at all. It doesn't question that God is the creator of all things, all life. It would raise questions for me whether they were presented the gospel message in some way. That would be it. But me not knowing doesn't mean that it didn't happen.
Yeah, because you're thinking sin, you're thinking fallen persons, you're thinking redemption,
imago Dei, in the image of God. Right. Are they created in the image of God also?
Exactly. Those are legit questions.
And I think that's where the atheist comes in and says, "Hey, man, your Christianity kind of falls short." Not necessarily. So,
but that's like, why don't we just go back to the very beginning and say, what happens if all of reality was totally different? Okay, well then let's have that discussion. Yeah. But that's really what's being proposed here. What if all of reality, as you know it, as the gospel is presented, as the scriptures have presented, what if it's totally different? Because now there's all these other persons, or all these, and we don't even know if they're persons, just creatures maybe sentient beings who don't have souls, but are sentient.
Yeah.
You know, sort of like higher mammal forms that can have relationships with human beings, like your pets, but they don't actually have spirits. I mean, this goes all over the place. That's one discussion. But if you're talking evidence, zero evidence. And I'm worried about the absolute certainty, zero evidence industry.
Well, I'm going to take a time to wrap up.
All right, let's do it.
Excuse me. Not that Dobby's watching right now because she's probably not. She's with the kids. But today is 20 years. Take a point of personal privilege for my wife and I being married. I will tell you that the Lord intervened in my life when I met Dobby. What I was going through after my brother's murder, being a functioning angerholic, I self-diagnosed. I didn't go talk to anybody. And then just going down this spiral hole of hatred and unforgiveness. And the world, speaking of the world, had no answers for me. You know, it just said, I don't blame you, and turned me into a raging, asshole at times because I was just so angry. And 20 years ago today, Davi said yes to me to allow me to be her husband and she be my wife. And what a journey, man. Mm-hmm. What a journey of going through politics, 4 kids, raising a special needs son, going through advocacy on medical freedom because, we absolutely believe and know that Michael is vaccine injured, and just all the journey she's been on with me, from politics to personal advocacy and being in the special needs world. So what a blessing. So marriage is a blessing. Find that right person. I pray that we have 40 more years together, not 20 more years. I pray we have 40 more years together. And so maybe later on she'll see this, and I just want to wish her a very blessed and happy anniversary, and thanks for loving me and our family and putting up with all the shit that comes along with
congratulations. That's a big deal.
Well,
20 years.
You're way past 20, brother, but I mean, it's a big deal. 20 is a big deal.
But she's been a blessing to you and you to her.
Oh, yeah. Thank you, man. Well, thanks, guys, for joining us.
Love it.
Hope this satisfied you a little bit. George is our guy. I'm talking about this stuff because I could give a crap about it. But join us next week. Hopefully we'll have the brothers back on with us maybe, right? Marquise and Momo may come back
maybe we can talk about AI, right, Dom? Because
who knows?
That's the other one.
There's another one that I'm just going to be interviewing you on because I don't know shit about AI either. I need to learn more about it. Guys, God bless you. Thank you. Just share these with someone you think may benefit from it. Have a blessed week. Bye-bye.